This is Jamie Dyer welcoming you to another edition of the Quo-Cast. And as I've said previously, the podcast turns 5 this year. And so far, in its 5-year history, there has only been one new Quo studio album in that time. And that is Backbone, which also turns 5 this year. And today, I'm not going to talk about the album. I might reflect on that at a later date, maybe closer to the actual anniversary. Today, I want to talk about the singles that came from that album. But first, a little bit of historical context. So, as we know, Rick Parfitt passed away in December 2016. And Richie Malone had already stood in for him and joined the band and started touring. They released Last Night of the Electrics. There hadn't been really a Quo studio album. Okay, you had a Quo Stick and a Quo Stick 2, but it wasn't in that electric mold. You had Bula Quo, but that's more of a soundtrack album, I guess. And so really the last one you had that was like a pure studio album that didn't have anything else attached to it was probably, Quid Pro Quo, I would say there. But that's just my opinion. They were touring around and they're releasing live albums and stuff. And I think they performed at Glastonbury around 2017 and for Radio 2 and stuff. And then a new album was announced, Backbone, and with the idea that Rick wasn't going to be on it, you did wonder, well, what's it going to sound like? You know, how's it going to be? That type of thing. The first kind of, I guess, sniffings of new material was when Francis started to do a little thing just before Down, Down, kind of playing a little bit. It gave the band a chance to rest, but he was doing this kind of riff thing, and they worked on it, and eventually, along with Rhino Edwards, came up with the song Backbone, which was the first song to be released from that album as a promotional tool for it. And I must say, it sounded like Quo. It had a really nice idea, and it's interesting hearing it, knowing that it almost derived from playing around the same chord structure as Down, Down, I guess. I think it's probably one of the few songs. I don't think it really goes on to any other chords, does it? It just kind of stays on that one chord. It just kind of plays around with it. But it's really funky, and I liked it. And another thing that I noticed earlier today when I was listening in preparation for this podcast is that for a while in the 80s and 90s, you had a lot of falsetto on Quo records. That was usually Bernie Frost that was providing that type of thing, definitely in the early 80s stuff, and that second vocal line that you'd get alongside Francis, just kind of providing an extra thing. In Backbone, you get some of these elements, and there was something quite throwbacky about that. I thought that was pretty cool, because you get the different strokes. I can't do the falsetto, I'm afraid, but you know the bit I'm talking about. And so that came out, and that got me quite excited, as I have been for many of the Quo albums that I've seen released during my lifetime. And so then the track Liberty Lane was kind of bandied around a bit. It was played live, and I watched the clip. I was very excited by this. It was raw, it was loud, it had kind of an interesting structure. Unusually for a song like that, the name of the song is used in like the first line and then never again, really. And so I loved that. Into the chorus, there was something quite aggressive and quite interesting about it, and it felt very fresh, if you will. And then I heard that the track was going to get released as a single, was going to be played on the Ken Bruce show. Listen to it. I think it lacked the rawness of the live version. But it was nice to hear Francis double-tracked, which hadn't really been done for a while because of the nature of the recordings they were making, like for acoustic and stuff, with it being stripped bare. And I liked that the guitars were high up in the mix, and it sounded very fresh, certainly. It sounded like Quo in the 21st century, and sort of a follow-on. I probably would have liked it if it had been done in a similar way to the way Quid Pro Quo, or even In Search of the Fourth Chord with Mike Paxman or Pip Williams at the desk. You know, it would have been nice to hear it in that kind of way, I guess, that kind of production. But the way that Francis and Andy Brooke have done it there, it suited the song, it suited the era that it was coming out in. It sounded good on the radio. And certainly I think it's something of a modern Quo classic, you know, which is not something you would have expected at that point. I kind of assumed there wasn't going to be any new material after a certain point, you know, that was just going to be live gigs. But, you know, that was exciting. And it came out, I downloaded it, and I listened to it tens upon tens upon tens of times. I really like the song, and I love everything about that album, which I shall talk about in a future episode of the podcast. What do you think of the singles Backbone and Liberty Lane? Do let me know in the comments below.